Hey everybody, I am back with the review of season 2 of Batman Beyond. So, before we get right into it, please, if you do me a favor, please like and subscribe, share this with your friends. Let me know what you guys think of the Batman Beyond series. So we'll cut right to the chase, because I'm not going to rehash the fact that it has great animation and great voice acting. That is a no-brainer. So we're just go. I'm going to go through the episodes I really enjoyed, and point out the stuff that like wasn't so like episodes that I wasn't so invested in. But first and foremost, splicers, which, like I said, man, like I really need to get more into like Batman Beyond comics. I read some here and there, but I don't know if they actually utilize a lot of these villains that are specifically enemies for Terry and less for Bruce. Because a lot of these guys have a hell of a lot of. There's a lot of like, I won't say gory deaths, but very implied suffering deaths in this series than most people fail to realize. Oh, and I almost forgot about the fact that I didn't bring this up in the previous review of season 1. The musical score is phenomenal, especially the opening. That very techno music is like, techno Batman type of song, and it's like very retro. And also, why we're technically in the future. Why aren't we using words like sway and slag? It's kind of weird. Or like if you in terms of Spider-Man 2099 verbiage, uh, crap. What is like a slang term? Miguel O'Hara say, uh, mm, uh, shock. That was it. It's like, what the shock? Yeah, it's like, what? It's like, why are not we using words like shock or slag or sway? Like, we need to, if y'all watching this, we need to like make those words a thing now. I think we're at the point of the I ideal timeline of what, not 2099, but probably what the time frame of Batman Beyond would be, where we should be utilizing sway and slag. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, so we get these this new villain, uh Cuvier, who introduces this new fad, which I can totally see it being like a legit thing for, like, because every generation has their own little type of fad that they want to, because people like to rebel, in their youth, just like, or at least in general, this is rebellion is part of human nature from time to time. And you know when I was a kid, like, our grandparents and parents did not like the fact that we sag in our pants, and it's like you can see that, even at the time, it's like I understand, because I don't want to look at somebody's crack of their behind or their underwear, things like that nature. Uh, but it's always these gimmicks that kids get into, like Ti. The rapper Ti had like a thing where he got like rubber bands on his wrists, and a bunch of people started wearing rubber bands on their wrists because it's like, favorite rapper was doing it. Everybody starts getting on the bandwagon. Like when, even going further back, uh, after Halle Berry was hitting it big in the movies, and she was, she had that iconic hairstyle where she shortened her hair, and it looks really good on her. Every girl in the world wanted to start looking like Halle Berry, even though they probably didn't have the head shape to make that look good. So it's a thing. So this is taking it to its furthest extreme, because even like Max, Terry's younger brother, wants, like, some kind of splicing thing, but the mom is like, absolutely not. But he points out the fact that she has like a tattoo on her ankle, and she points like, oh, that was different. And it's like, it points out like, yeah, like, we all got a youthful thing that we want to get into and their parents don't understand. But by the time they get older and they see like a new trend that seems kind of out of pocket in their eyes, it seems kind of wild. It's always like a cycle. But I agree. This kind of takes it to a further extreme where you're messing with your DNA to make yourself look animalistic because they don't like, the way they look now. It kind of speaks to a lot of real world stuff right now where kids don't want to just be themselves, or they always want to join in, be in the in crowd because it's like a hip thing to do. It's like how many people identify this, that, and the third? Are you really this, that, and the third, or are you just doing it because your social group is doing it and you don't want to feel left out? You want to be part of a community so bad you will do anything to just fit in. And obviously Terry's not buying it, and of course Bruce thinks it's kind of ridiculous. But then when they see three of Kiari's little goons start messing around with people because they're freaking teenagers with no freaking sense, like you bringing attention to needless attention to them, where he trying to. I can see Kiari's plan working if his little goons were keeping their act together in public, because he's getting the public slowly but surely on his side. But then after all the crazy roughhousing and trying to attack the DA, now it's like, okay, you brought this whole thing on yourself. You could have just left well enough alone, because you probably would have, of course, he's going to get tied up in legal matters and everything like that. But honestly, it's not that too dissimilar where like people try to, certain moms back in the day really thought Mortal Kombat would have been like a problematic for the youth back in the day, and actually brought it up to the court system. And of course they end up losing against that, and because kids getting violent because of Mortal Kombat video game was ridiculous. So this takes us to a further extreme, because anybody messing with a DNA to look like a ram or a snake probably gonna have like people going to people. They're gonna probably abuse that to this nth degree. But they probably would have won that if they just left things alone. But in any case, you actually get a man bat situation where Kiari injects Terry, and you actually get to see like a man bat situation for a brief period. But thanks to Bruce, he managed to cure him, and you get to see like a team up with Ace the Bat Hound with Batman Beyond to take down Kiari after he cures the goons, and now Kiari turns himself to Chimera and injects a buttload of that serum to turn to some kind of chimera of different types of animals. But then, thanks to Ace distracting him, Terry gets more injections and just injecting this dude all over the place. Now he just can't control it, and then he's pretty much like, comatose or something. Like he's pretty much done. But it was like a fun episode. But it was like a lot, man. It's like just a lot to think about in a lot of these episodes. Joyride was actually my least favorite one. It's like the Joker game. It's like not in terms of like you got these like grunt type of know nothing bad people that Terry every so often has to deal with, because they're just like the local gang. You can't deal with them all because it's probably like a cynic. I don't want to say a syndicate, but it's just like punks, a group of punks that seems they're not like the mob, like they're super connected and they're all over the place. They're just like a bunch of uncoordinated punk kids. I'm shocked that these guys are just in places for him to occasionally deal with. And it's like, they should have been dealt with, at least by the police in the first week, bare minimum, to a month. I'm not sure. It's just they're not coordinated. They're not like the mob. So they shouldn't be this much trouble. Anyway, they steal Batman's Batmobile, but he ends up getting it back. It's not really all that impressive to me, at least in terms of the story. But you get like the Lost Soul with the Ghost in the Machine with like this, it's like the long dead tycoon who got his brain downloaded into a computer software by his son, and then he lays dormant long after he passed away. Now his grandson's taking over, which he doesn't care to because it's like too much for him. But then he gets manipulated by this robotic Ghost in the Machine kind of thing, and it's like, was the grandfather this kind of crazy in real life? Because it's supposed to be his same brain patterns, or he just got crazy because he's laid dormant inside a machine this whole time. I'm not sure, but they didn't really lay it out specifically if this guy was like, he probably has some kind of screw loose to be okay with his mind getting downloaded into, at least, brain patterns getting downloaded into the computer. But then he, like Skynet, want to take over, but he wants a physical body, so he ends up getting, possessing the bat suit. And it is kind of creepy to see this walking suit attacking Terry, who's utilizing a Nightwing domino mask, which is pretty dope, and Batman's old bat belt. But fighting the suit where at full strength punches holes in the walls, and I was like, oh my god, like Terry's been holding back this whole entire time, and it's kind of wow, this suit can do some legit damage. But thanks to this machine where it kind of like neutralized the suit altogether, pretty much resets everything, which finally destroys what's left of Vance in the first place, before he ends up possessing the body of his own grandchild, which is kind of sick, honestly. But it was kind of cool episode. We finally get Cree Summer as Max Gibson, who ends up finding out, because he's so smart, but she ends up finding out that later on that Terry is Batman, because she do all this kind of algorithm and narrowing down the search to figure out that Batman has to be possibly a kid around their age, obviously male, a certain height, and that kind of thing. And it's like, it's, part of me feels like it's kind of quick just to have her just suddenly in one episode get all Batman eager to know who he is all of a sudden. It seems kind of quick, and I don't mind it at the end result, because she's an impressive character, which I do not recall in any Batman Beyond comics. Like I said, I didn't read much of them. I really should start. I don't remember her being like a mainstay as a supporting character in the comics. She should be. And of course, Terry make an offhanded joke about like, because she doesn't want to be no Robin. And he was like, it's all right, Alfred. And she doesn't know who that name is. But it's kind of a nice little shout out to Alfred. But I kind of wish that we set up, as a matter of fact, Max should have been set up way in season 1, and just at some point, maybe halfway or towards the end of season 1, her getting suspicious about, like, or at least curious about Batman and where he's from, and because she's very smart, she's like the smartest, person in the school, and really set up, little bit by little bit in every other episode up until this point, where she finally kind of narrowed things down and getting close to the search, because it just happens kind of fast in this episode. That's all I'm saying. But it turns out one of the lead Jokers, like I said, these Joker gang members, it's like they swap. You get like a certain people, but you get certain other members that kind of get swapped out, and it's like, I really don't care for the Jokers. They're not very interesting. They're very low tier in terms of Batman Beyond's Rose Gallery. Honestly, they really don't leave much of an impact beyond the name they stole. They don't really make any sort of impact outside of the movie. When they're pretty much being utilized as grunts anyway. Because that's all they are, just grunts, just to be led. But one of the second smartest kids in school turns out to be one of the leaders that, thanks with the assistance of Max, managed to take down. And now Max is part of the inside with Terry, because he often felt like he needs somebody to talk to outside of this job, because he always kept it with himself or with Bruce. But he needed like somebody, like a fellow peer, so that way he can, have somebody to talk to and can cover for him outside of Batman stuff, so people won't, often question why is he disappearing or taking too long or running late and stuff. So it's pretty dope. Then we get Bloodsport with his character Stalker, which is pretty much Batman Beyond's version of Kraven the Hunter. And we get like a grueling origin story with this dude, where he had this kind of like mark, like a healed mark on that goes along his spine, where he's like a part, not fully cybernetic, but he has, implants here and there, to where he's very agile, kind of strong, and a little faster. He was like a game hunter that was hunting this panther or something, but he got sloppy. The panther jumped on him. He got, pretty much mauled. He was just barely saved, and they had to operate on him, but I guess for some reason they couldn't give him any kind of anesthesia, and it's kind of grueling just to see, just all in black and red silhouettes, and it's really cool looking. And and kudos to the voice actor, because he really lays it on thick, where him just like in pain as the surgery's carrying on, and clearly the, impression of blood here and there is kind of obvious. Of course, they don't shy away from blood, but they don't make it kind of gory. It usually trickles down like a lip or something, or a cut on the forehead. Other than that, it's usually kind of maybe silhouetted, like in this kind of case, or they don't do it at all. But man, while he's trying to heal, he just like broke out, tracked down that panther, and just killed the thing with his bare hands. And he's become like Stalker with this unique staff. And now he comes to Gotham City to hunt Batman, his, greatest, who he sees like a potential prey of all preys. And like I said, it's very Kraven the Hunter. And that's how, like, pretty much Kraven, his first appearance in Marvel Comics was to try to take down his greatest prey, Spider-Man. But Stalker ends up when he, threw this gas pellet on Batman and pretty much covered him in this kind of isotope thing where he kind of pretty much glows like a matchstick when you're looking through this particular uh, lens that the stalker has in his eye where you can easily track him down. So he pretty much knows sort of who, and he doesn't know who Batman is. He didn't get it because he's looking through that little green hue. He doesn't know who he looks like per se, but he ends up tracking him down while Terry's looking after Max at his arcade. Max ends up getting kidnapped by this dude and utilized as bait to lure Batman in. And of course, Max is a huge like Batman fan, and he ends up saving his little brother. But then you get this horrific scene, which you think is like, okay, he's gone, but he shows up in another episode where the glass thing in his eyes scrambles, so he's envisioning like, either Batman or this oncoming train as that Panther coming back from the dead to hunt him down. And Batman thinks that the guy got ran over by the train, but he ends up coming back. But that was an awesome episode. It was really fun. And I love the whole drum tribal music in the background. It's like really set the tone of this episode. We get the introduction to the Royal Flush Gang and Ten and Terry, well, in their little she knows eventually who he is, but they have this whole star-crossed lovers kind of like Romeo and Juliet type of thing going on. And she doesn't, like, thieving in her family gang. And of course, Terry's on the outs with Dana, who doesn't know who he really is. And he keeps that a secret from her. So all she knows, he is like working for Bruce Wayne and always seems to be late and always on call and doesn't have time for her. So she every so often she gets kind of fed up. It's a very Spider-Man Mary Jane thing back in the day. That type of dichotomy cliche. So of course this kind of doesn't help where now he's got like a void where 10 is fulfilling. And of course once they finally stop the Royal Flush Gang, Bruce ends the episode with him like confiding into Terry. It's like, let me tell you about this young woman I knew back in the day named Selena Kyle. So it's kind of like, 10 is Terry's kind of Selena Kyle, just like Black Cat is pretty much Peter Parker's Selena Kyle. It's that kind of dynamic where it's very rarely utilized in comics. There's been, because Miles Morales has his version, which technically he's actually dating, named who's like the granddaughter of the Vulture. And that, I think that's the only difference. There's no like love triangle situation happening with Miles Morales. Well, then again, he did meet up with Blade's daughter in the past several months, in this kind of crossover situation. So possibly, but there's nothing like that could lead to something, but it's not really solidified. But as of right now, like I think that Vulture granddaughter is pretty much his, like a combination of Miles' Mary Jane and Black Cat rolled into one. But I don't know if I want to even count that. Anyway, getting off track. So it's an alright episode. Not one of my favorites, but like, there's other lame episodes like Rats that's, kind of lame. But we get like some villains coming back, like Spellbinder. And the episode hooked up where he you know, these kids come from troubled households that he's pretty much, which is kind of like a thing going on in real life, man. It's like got these kids coming from troubled homes, logging them into this virtual reality where everything's working out for them. They live in like their most ideal lives that they really want, but he strips them out of the virtual world in order to get them to steal from him, and it affects their brain chemistry. So now they're pretty much addicted to the virtual world. Max tried to help Terry in order to figure out where one of their classmates has gone to, a former classmates, because he's like a runaway. Then she gets trapped inside, and of course Terry tries to help her out, but this clues into Terry that Max comes from like a troubled household herself. The fact that it was just her and her sister, and the parents are just no shows, or at least the mom probably works too often, barely has time for them, and dad kind of ran out. So she, I guess overcompensated by studying hard, and that's why she's always the smartest one in the school. But it just deepens it at least shows the main layers to Max that we haven't seen before, and Terry hasn't seen before, and realize that that's probably why she's so gung-ho about being so invested in Terry's world, because it's probably like the most exciting thing to her, and it kind of distracts her from her troubled life at home where she needs the distraction. She rarely wants to go home kind of situation. It is just like, it just deepens your empathy towards the character of Max. But she ends up overcoming this, what she wants from the virtual world and what she probably needs in the real world, and helps Terry stop Spellbinder. And of course, Spellbinder comes back in another episode where, he tricks Barbara Gordon into thinking he killed this other rogue called Mad Stan, who's pretty much like a mad bomber, which is like a shame we don't get like a episode technically dedicated to him where he's trying to self explosions or something like that, or have some kind of crazy plan. Never had something like that with Mad Stan. I'm pretty sure there is one maybe in the third episode, but it wasn't all that good from what I recall. But man, you're gonna do a lot with this particular character. But anyway, she is convinced that Terry crossed the line and killed Mad Stan. So she pretty much she doesn't want Terry out in the costume anymore, otherwise she will arrest him on sight, kind of thing. And of course, I did not care for Barbara for most of the series, not all, but just there's points like this where she seems like a crotchety old lady, like she forgot her roots, where as she got older she just became like cynical, or just like the world of the hero, the hero world kind of like hardened her or something like that. Because honestly, if like her younger self sees how she turned out, she probably would have been like just bothered by that. It's like you lost that youthful optimism, and of course it's like you get older and wiser, but you shouldn't lose that type of youthful outlook on life. There should be like a balance between naivete and just cynicism. And Barbara and Bruce, as a matter of fact, have, for the most part, from time to time, you see them just kind of like in that cynicism world. Like you see that with Bruce, where he just kind of like refuses to think that Mr. Freeze could possibly turn over a new leaf after all these years. And Barbara here is just like, like you in the superhero world, I'm pretty sure you come across situations where people are accused of uh taking a life when they did not, and it's like you like you could give this you know person a benefit of the doubt. Uh, but they end up discovering that Spellbinder tricked her and putting a stop to it. Uh, but I mean, I just like sometimes Barbara kind of grinds my gears. It's like, come on, like this world, you left it. Like you should like know this all seems kind of like out of the blue, or you give like this kid a benefit of the doubt. The fact that he saves many lives and not killed nobody since he took up the mantle of Batman. It's like, come on. Anyway, but that was a decent episode, and you find out that where Mad Stan was. He was in one of Spellbinder's little virtual worlds, hidden away. So people just assume that he's just dead. We get a return of Willie Watt, who now has ESP powers, but also has been hitting that gym. Now he's buff as hell, but he utilizes his powers to seemingly haunt the school. And everybody thinks it's some other kid who died many years ago, and that still haunts the place. And took an interest into one of the girls that it turns out Willie had an interest in before he got put away. But he ends up breaking out and starting to, of course, go after Nelson, who he still obviously hold a deep grudge with. And also, it's very sad, like the fact that Terry's the only person that ever visited Willie this whole entire time. Clearly, his relationship with his father has not improved after the whole ordeal with the golem. So it's like, man, you really feel bad for this kid. You wouldn't have turned out this way if he had the right, person looking after him at home and not feeding into his misery and agitation. Because you're surrounded by just bullies. So it was no safe haven for this kid. So I can't sit there and like not understand why he turned out the way he did. It's kind of funny to see this, Nelson sound like, oh, that's so easy for you because you got powers now. And he's like, fine, no powers. And you get to see like Willie like throwing hands with Nelson, but knowing that Nelson's probably got, well, you'll think that Willie, given the fact that he'd been hitting the gym, would have learned probably at least how to box while in prison. But I guess he kind of like more so focused on increasing his brain power and as well as muscles, but never really had to worry about getting to an actual fist fight. But then he's like, you know what? Screw it. I'll use my powers and just like toss this kid off of him. But it was kind of funny. And probably a little cathartic for Willie. But Batman finally stopped Willie, and now he's like, he's supposed to have gotten out for early parole, but now that's all out the window with what he's been doing. So now that he's on deep lockdown with some mechanical apparatus to keep his powers in check. But man, I just feel bad for Willie, man. He is like, probably got the saddest backstory of all of the Batman Beyond rogues. We get a return of Shriek in Babel, one of my favorite episodes in the entire series, in all honesty, because Shriek is a favorite like villain in terms of Batman Beyond villains, or possibly in DC in general in terms of favorite villains. Where now that he's deaf, he had to use this kind of like headgear in order to hear things, but he ends up messing with uh, people's speech, where because sound waves carry vocal patterns, so you kind of not cancel it out, but actually kind of jumbles it. So everybody's speaking gibberish. It kind of like harkens to like the biblical story of Tower of Babel, which is also like name of a prominent Justice League event. Uh, but in terms of the biblical story, is the way it went, where all humanity, whereas it's not, was like in one section, kind of like built this tower to reach the pinnacle of heaven to be closer to God, but God saw that. I might be a little butcher this a little bit, but this is just the gist of the story. Kind of like, okay, can't have this. It's kind of hubris or whatever. Not only you have the tower destroyed, but also we can't have y'all communing with each other. This is, I think, Old Testament kind of stuff. Can't have y'all communing with each other like this anymore, because y'all get kind of too full of yourselves. Y'all don't know, like the totem pole where y'all are. So I'm going to give y'all, each group of y'all, different speeches. Like, you speak English, you speak Spanish, you speak French, you speak African, you speak Australian, blah 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 blah. So now we can't commune with each other as effortlessly. They kind of got humanity not to like cooperate that same way. So it's kind of like Streak is doing something a tad bit like that, where it's like causing chaos because nobody can commune with each other properly. So he's holding the city ransom, and what he wants is Batman to come to him. And so the city ends up turning on Batman, which bothers Bruce, because the fact that everybody just turns into like a little ingrates. And of course Terry wants to confess, thinking this might be his, the jig is up for him and he might bite the big one with Streak. He tries to confess with Max and his mom, but they don't believe him being Batman. But Barbara feels like her hands are tied, even though she doesn't agree of handing the kid over. But the city is going to turn to a powder keg if his demands aren't met. And with like animals going crazy and people can't commune, and city's gonna go in complete wreck. That so it's like people just like it's kind of crappy, because like you see, like, for the most part, people on the news talking like, why should we suffer when he just turned himself in? This is his fault. But I kind of wish that we get like the other side of things, where it's like some people saying like, well, like, he did save my life. I don't think like it's good for us to turn him over. Just see like multiple people with various different opinions and not just one-sided thing, because it doesn't seem fair, because the dude did constantly save many lives. So it just seems like so easy for y'all to just give him up. But Terry ends up going anyway, because he tells Bruce, like, neither one of us got in this line of work for the gratitude. We did it for a purpose. And this really solidifies Terry as legit Batman now, because he understands that being a hero isn't about gaining praise or accolades for saving lives. He do it because it's the right thing to do. So he tangles with Shriek, but it leads to one of the funniest moments, where, because he turns on the like gibberish sound waves, and he tries to threaten Batman, and he goes like, Mutsata, and Batman like, he's like, he had to turn the thing back, and it's like, I said you'll never get. And it's like, yeah, like you probably should have thought of it, because that still makes me laugh, because the fact that you forgot that, like, you threatened me, it's like, I don't understand what you're saying. Like, you might be intimidating right now, but I'm just not registering. It always cracks me up. To this day, that still cracks me up. But because uh 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 because he's using this tower like a big, that he's like a hideaway that he has as like a giant tuning fork to cause this distraction, but uh when it gets messed up, it causes, and a lot of these buildings in this show goes up like a powder cake, like it's filled with gasoline all the time. But anyway, this tower comes down. Batman tries to warn Shriek, but of course he can't hear anything going down because his helmet's off. So he's just like full on attack mode. But the tower just comes crashing down on this dude, and he's none the wise until it's too late. But like I said, man, the seemingly death toll on this show is crazy. Speaking of death tolls, is one of the sneak peek, another favorite episode of mine, where this reporter who utilizes this science, this like little science belt that makes him intangible, almost like a blue ghost, where he can travel between like, you know, go between walls and stuff like that, in order to spy on people to get the hot scoop and always be one step ahead of everybody in terms of reporting. That's why he becomes like a big deal. Of course, it ends up catching up with them, where one of the criminals that was going to turn state's evidence to the DA, now that he got blasted on the news and now he's, you know, his life is in danger, he blames this reporter, so he comes after him to attack him. Batman, you know, saves him, but he ends up, what's this guy's name? The reporter or the news guy? It doesn't show her here on. But anyway, he ends up sneaking a recorder inside the Batmobile, where he gets a live feed of Bruce Wayne and Terry unmasked, and is attempt, like, be part of his biggest scoop yet. Like, tune in at this time for the full unmasked identity of Batman. And it's like, it obviously bothers both Bruce and Terry. And I love Bruce's response, like, I always thought I was going to get found out, at least maybe by my enemies, but not this little sniveling little, grub like this guy. Terry tries to go to this reporter, and it's like, look, I don't care what you do to me, but don't expose Bruce. He did too much for this city, and he's earned that. And of course, this dude is like, not evil, but just very self-centered. And it's like, he'd do anything for like a hot scoop. It's like the worst aspects of a reporter that even somebody like Lois Lane would not respect at all. But then, because the belt he utilized has been affecting him internally, because he stole it off some dead scientist years ago, and maybe because it wasn't perfected, it's starting to affect his, bodily systems. So now, even without the belt, he is like becoming completely intangible. And he tries to get like Batman's help, but it even offers the only copy of the recording of them in the Batcave, but uh, he's starting to become completely untangible, without controlling it. So he starts falling through the various floors of the building, and Terry tries to fly down and try to catch him, and he tries his might to like tell him like concentrate, focus. You can do this. Make yourself tangible. Focus. But he couldn't hold on to it, and then he ends up laughing crazily when he's falling through the floor, and Bruce is like, he'll just keep on falling until he possibly hit the center of the earth. It's about as inside as you can possibly get. And it's like, man, like I said, like when people get taken out of this show, they get taken out. Like, oh my God. That did not shy away from, because that's like, I don't know if this dude's dead. He can possibly make a return, like if he manages to figure out to control this new ability and becomes like a new villain for Terry. And especially since he knows who they are, it makes him even more of a threat. But they could have utilized this villain. He's really good. Especially the actor really made this dude convincing as like a legit like threat. Well, and on this, it's like because like there's a lot of good episodes here, but this one is like very like a ripoff. I won't say a ripoff, but it's like a homage to like Star Wars, where this game creator, or technically a producer, is like of this video game called the Centuries of the Last Cosmos, which is very like a Star Wars-esque type of thing, where it's a video game where these three Primus geeks, I was going to call them that, and one of them, Terry and Max Snow, ends up getting recruited by this guy who is dressed up in this, very Jedi-like garb, and convinces these guys to go on these special missions to save the universe. And they go to these Hall of Records to destroy some documents. They think it's like something of grand import for their leader, of this creator of this world, and then it'll combating Batman in the process. But then they end up, doing some. Terry did some digging, and it turns out this guy wasn't really the creator of this game. It turns out this kind of fat dude named I forgot the guy's name. But one of them is inspired by one of the writers named Bruce Vilanch. And it's pretty much like a George Lucas type for this game, who's like the actual creator, but actually got, the producer pushed him out of the deal, or reneged of the deal. So now the guy was suing him for the rights of the game, but so this skinny dude who tries to like cover his tracks and utilize these kids to take him out, they kidnap him. But thanks to Batman showing that like this copy shows that the bearded guy is actually the real creator of this game. You guys been played. But then, very Star Wars, this skinny dude, the producer, ended up like utilizing, because he got this kind of techno suit where he shoots basically force lightning. And it's kind of funny because Kevin Conroy is friends with Mark Hamill, and you got like a guy using like force lightning, so it's kind of like tracks, or at least they're very interconnected. And it's like, you can't help but think of Luke getting shocked by the Emperor, like, "Father, help me!" Ah. I can't help but think about that. It's kind of funny, but thanks to the kids, they put a stop. Uh, well, no, it was like they end up helping at the end, but Batman ends up throwing like a bolo and tying the guy's hands together, and he ends up shocking himself. And I can't help but think, like, man, Luke could have easily used something like that. Because, like, if Batman was in, like, the Star Wars universe and somebody pulled, like, a Force lightning on him, he probably easily had done the exact same thing and put a stop to that very easily. But it's kind of funny. So that guy stopped. And then, in the end, those three geeks end up showing up at the home of the bearded guy. And they're so, like, awestruck. And I'm pretty sure it's kind of like, I'm pretty sure how George Lucas felt when a bunch of people come to him at a con and talk all this Star Wars knowledge with him and everything like that. So it was like a fun ending. Do I have time to talk about one more thing? Let's go with April Moon. Yeah, April Moon. That was one of this cool episode. I think as a kid I didn't really appreciate it, but over time I did grew to like the episode, where these four gang members who has these enhanced prosthetics, because each one has some kind of injury that is repaired by this scientist and kind of further enhance their prosthetics to be lethal weapons. And turns out they end up kidnapping his wife, April, and doing whatever that they want in order to hopefully get her back. And the fact that this dude should have been clued in on the fact that, okay, how many times you've been helping them and they still have not fulfilled their end of the bargain. Clearly they're not intending to give her back at all. But Batman eventually tracked these guys down and found out about this scientist. And the scientist tried to, like, of course, Terry's still roughly new at this. He ends up getting tased by this dude at first, but then comes back and, like, it's like got the jump on him, like, no more tricks. But it turns out these guys kidnap his wife, and they end up tracking down these guys at their little hideaway, and it turns out that April really wasn't a hostage. She turns out to be, like, a criminal, essentially, or at least like a femme fatale type of woman who's really in a relationship with the leader of the gang. And of course, he's just like, lost it. And of course, Batman ends up stopping these guys because the scientist had a failsafe, a voice-activated failsafe to disrupt them. As soon as he would have gotten his wife back, he would have activated it immediately. But he refused to tell Batman, because he didn't want him to mess up his chances of getting April back. But because he figures out the code via the photograph that he showed Batman earlier, he starts, saying the words April Moon. And that always stuck in my mind as he's just hopping around and it's like, April Moon. And everybody and it's kind of horrific where these guys, like the guy with the saw blades for knees and elbows, it just like starts falling apart on his face as like everything starts ripping apart and coming apart at the legs. I was like, God. And they're all going down like a house of cards, except for the leader who escapes. And we don't see April, but she escaped at some point. We don't see her again. But then Terry's telling Bruce, like the scientist and the leader, April, they're all gone. It's like by the time I managed to, I tried to track them down, but they end up escaping. But Bruce is like, well, we probably won't ever see them again. How can you be so sure? And then you see that because they didn't know the scientist was there, uh, the gang leader is expecting to like fix me up, Doc. Make it better than ever. And he's just like gaslighting this dude the whole entire time. Oh, your wife. Oh yeah, she's missing you something fierce. You'll get her back real soon. And then like the doctor's like, uh-huh. And so, and it's kind of like crazy when like the guy is like, and don't hold back this time, Doc. I hear you. Don't hold back. And you just see the final image of this dude putting like a power drill to the screen as the screen goes black. God, like I said, man, like the implied death or violence in this is like crazy. You just let your mind do most of the work, and it just pays off the episode. But those are like the favorite episodes I just want to run down very fast. But I'm pretty sure you all have your share of favorites in this season. Like I said, I have my least favorite ones. Like Zeta wasn't all that special to me. It's like it ends up leading into like a spinoff, which only had the one season called the Zeta Project, which really wasn't all that good in my opinion. I tried and I really could not get into it back in the day. Then it's like the Egg Baby, where it's kind of like cliche, thing with sitcoms where like two students have to look after an egg to see how they would be able to raise a kid to show responsibility. That was never like a good episode. Whenever an episode of a show do something like that, it's always lame to me. Final Cut. It's like Return of Curare, and it's very John Wick in my mind, where it's like those assassins supposed to come after her for failing. She ends up going after them, killing all of them. Well, she throws like a pill at them, and it kind of distorts their mind and put them in comatose state. But all said and done, she takes them all out. But Batman and manages to take her down though. But that part was kind of fun. See, it shows how level of skill. The fact that she takes down people that's supposed to be better than her. Very Kill Bill. John Wick. But yeah, Rats wasn't really all that good. Mind Games was fine. It's like very B's ranked type of episodes. It's okay. Definitely better than Joyride. But anyway, that was my quick rundown of season 2. All the episodes that I really enjoyed from Batman Beyond. But then I got season 3 to get through, which that part shouldn't take all that too long. After I'm done with Batman Beyond, I'm going to go into The Batman, and it had 3 seasons as well, and give my overall thoughts from the seasons from that show. But tomorrow I will be tomorrow afternoon or evening, I will be doing a full spoiler review of Deadpool and Wolverine, and yeah, I think that's the only thing I'm going to be reviewing. I still want to give people time to actually go to the theater and see the film. So by Saturday evening, you guys should have probably already gone to see it or be in the theater to see it. So I'm going to give my full spoilers of that movie. And yeah, so look forward to that. I'll see you all soon. Take care. Have a great weekend. Peace.